This is Matt Kundle's Hot Air Podcast.
The Keto Diet. At the stroke of midnight on January 1st, New Year's resolutions kicked in, and hundreds of thousands of people around the world became gym members, and they started their annual diet. For many, that included the Keto Diet. At first look, it has a little more taste and sustainability than the Scarsdale diet of the 1980s and the Atkins diet of the early 2000s. But it says you can eat a bunch of bacon, so that's a flag. It also says no rice and beans, no corn, but lots of whole foods. Now I'm just confused. And with many confusing messages about what to eat and what we should be eating, I called on the Detox Yogi and the host of Your Wellness Journey to debunk and dissect the keto diet. If you like what you hear from Marla on this show, check out her website and connect to her podcast. It's all in the show notes. She's a food scientist, and she pretty much knows what's going to happen to you if you put food in your body. How did this keto fad get popular?
Well, so keto fad is actually, I guess it's not a fad, really. It's been around for, over 100 years now. So I think it's just being picked up in the last probably 10 years. The diet industry, it's like every few years it needs something new. It just needs a rebranding effort to get the same clients pretty much back to them. And the thing is that there are quite a few diets out there that they show results really quick. You're in it for 3 days and you are physically seeing changes, and people want that. So it's never going to go out of fad. So it really isn't a fad. They're where they are in their health for whatever reason, and they want to get out, they want to get somewhere better, and they want to get out of there tomorrow. So whatever diet is offering that, you see hundreds of thousands of people and they'll jump at it.
So we rush into a brand new year. Mm-hmm. We're in 2019, and a lot of people ran into this.
Yeah.
Do they know what they're getting into?
Maybe to some degree. You know, the keto diet, and I spent quite a bit of time researching the science of it. My background is in food science, so I love looking at the research studies of what we're actually doing. And I actually signed up for a kind of little keto diet online just to see what they'd put you through, all the bells, all the whistles, what they're telling you, and then of course what they're not telling you. And there actually is some good. This isn't keto bashing at all. So I have a top 5 of what's good about the keto diet and 5 of what you really need to know, kind of the bad, the other side of it, that you just need to walk into it if you want to do it with your eyes wide open.
So do you want to go through those top 5 things now?
Funny thing, I went through, so I entered in all of my coordinates. They asked you to put in your weight, your height, your goals, all of these things, and they came up with a little plan. It was just very interesting because, you know, I have clients all over North America, and we work on their diet and what they're trying to accomplish from their mind and their body, and just to see the similarities as well as the differences. So from the good perspective, for most of these keto diets, and I think I get an email every single day at this point of, in the next 60 days, lose 50 pounds. And it's just, people want that magic bullet. They want to be there. They want to be in 60 days, 50 pounds lighter, or 10 pounds, or 20 pounds. So after looking at the good, and I didn't want to go in with a, keto, this is not good, of what really happens that's great. So the first thing is, for the most part, they put you on a 21-day plan. That's kind of the minimum. And 21 days is a great day. Science proves that in 21 days, we can form new habits. It gives you time to really assimilate in your body the changes. So it takes you from where you are, what you're eating, how you're thinking about food, and over 3 weeks, it really gives you time to break free. It's a big jump. So 21 days, that's kind of a nice starting point. So that's the one good thing. The second thing is, and when I entered in all my data, it said, you're supposed to be consuming about 2100 calories. So that's great. So basically what it says is Fat is not the enemy. Calories are not the enemy. And I preach that all the time because you see these super low fat, super low calorie diets. And those are just like, they're the train wrecks. They're that girlfriend, boyfriend you had in university and high school that were the train wreck. Those ones where you are low calorie, low fat. So that's wonderful. People say, hey, I can get huge results in a short amount of time. And calories are not the issue, and fat is not the issue. So if that's the one thing that a keto diet brings to people, awesome. The third thing that I say is if you look at what they tell you to eat during a keto diet, and I don't approve of all of it, but the one thing that you'll see is right away it takes all processed foods out. The potato chips, the cakes, anything where you go to the store and there is an ingredient list that is as long as your arm, it nixes that. And we know just that alone is huge for your body, because as soon as you eat something like that, your body's confused. Our bodies, after hundreds of thousands of years, it's used to eating an apple. Something like that, whole foods, where there's one ingredient in it. As soon as we start eating things where there's a million ingredients in it, your body's like, I don't even know where to start here. And it slows things down in your system and you get bloating. You think you're gaining weight, but what you're doing is you're having bloating because your body just can't figure out which way is up with these huge processed foods. And you go into any grocery store right now, go into your kitchen right now, what percentage of what's in your cupboard has all this ingredients in it?
Well, tons of it. And I think a lot of people, when they look to a diet like this, one of the positives, and you have professed this time and time again on this podcast, and that's we got to stop, eating our food out of bags with tons of ingredients and stuff coming together. I'm okay with most of the ingredients, but as long as you put them in your dish at home.
Yeah.
And that's why I love cooking one-pot meals, because I know exactly what goes in.
Yeah.
I'm going to put in vegetables, and then I'm going to put in curry, and I'll put in some turmeric, and I'll add my own things to it. But when you're at the grocery store, you've got to look at the ingredients and think, can I put this in at home? And if you can't put it in at home, you probably shouldn't put it in at all.
Yeah. I did a little challenge a few weeks ago where I just went into a grocery store. We were in the States, and I looked at the ingredient list. I took a picture on my phone, and I researched every single ingredient on there, what it really is. Because, of course, they're all written in this crazy chemical code that no one can even pronounce. Never mind, figure out what is it really? Is it a vitamin? Is it an added color, an added flavor? What is it? So I took the time to actually research every single ingredient. And it was a breakfast cereal, a common breakfast cereal that you'll see on any grocery store. And it took me 8 full hours. And I'm a food scientist. I know this backwards and forwards to get to the base of what that. Now, you're in a grocery store. You have 20 minutes. You got to get in there. You got to get out. You got to go home. You got to make food for your family. You're going to glance at that list and you're going to keep going. It's just awful to see this, what these labels are doing. So my challenge to people is stop reading labels. I don't want you to read labels. If it has a label, let's try and put it back. So what I say is have people look at a grocery cart. Everything in the main part, the big basket part, that should be whole foods. There is no ingredients in it. It is just an apple. It is just celery. There is no ingredient list. It is just rice. Or if you eat meat, it is just a chicken breast. And then below, the lower part, I say put all your toilet paper and soap and Kleenex. Put that all at the very bottom of the cart. And the top part where we put our purses or our mitts or whatever, only that little tiny area is reserved for things that have ingredient lists. And just count. It should be no more than 5 items. If there is more than 5 items in the ingredient list, you don't even have to read it. Put it back on the shelf. So that kind of is very helpful for people. If just you're doing that, it's extremely helpful. Stop reading labels, I say.
You still have 2 more things to point out about the positive side effects of the keto diet. What 2 do you have left?
Yeah, and this goes perfectly into number 4. It focuses on whole foods. I don't really agree with the whole foods that it does focus on, but you're eating eggs, you're eating bacon. Again, we'll talk about bacon in a minute on the negative side, but you're eating actual whole foods for the most part on it. So it takes you away from all the foods in the stores that have these huge ingredient lists. And the last one is you will physically see changes quickly. And as soon as you see that one change, and it could be maybe your complexion, or maybe it is you're on the scale and you see 5 pounds go down, you are feeling good, you are rewarded, and you want to keep going. So that is a good thing to see progress. We all need to see progress. It doesn't matter if it's in our career, with our partner, with our kids, with our anything. We need to see progress in order for us to continue if we're plateauing for any long time. And that's why people are feeling very stagnant this time of year. It's a big plateau or a falling place for our health mentally and physically.
It sounds to me so far that we have a diet where our bodies are going to be digesting food that is more whole and not spending as much time on things like carbs, because maybe it does take a little bit longer to digest, carbs and rice and beans and all the things that keto says no to.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Possibly a little bit. So as I said, those are the 5 things that I say, hey, keto is doing right. But then there's 5 things that it is really not doing right that you need to know before you jump on in.
And that goes back to when I asked you initially, I said, hey, what do you think about the keto diet? And then you said, Matt, it has bacon in it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's probably a diet you should be on.
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say for that is, for the negative side, is that people want change so bad that they want to make sure that they're doing anything. It doesn't matter what it is. They will jump at it. They've been in a place for so long. It's the new year. They're like, oh, that's it. I'm doing something. I need a change. I will jump at anything. And if you jump on a diet that says bacon and eggs are good, that I can eat as much fat as I want, how good does that sound? People would love me to come up with a diet and say, you can eat ice cream all day long and eat bacon, and you're going to be where you want from a mental and health perspective. Everyone wants the lottery ticket. We want to win that $10 million tomorrow. Is that going to happen?
No. Probably not.
Yeah. So I think that's what people want, and they feel like the keto diet is going to offer that to them, and in the end it isn't. And that kind of goes to the second thing. It is not a sustainable diet. It's not something that you can carry into your life forever. It is something that is a quick fix that'll make you lose 10, 15, 20 pounds, and then you have to go into regular life. Well, what's going to happen 1 week after keto? What's going to happen a month after keto? You're going to need keto again, because you have to get back to that place. It's not something that even though maybe what you see on the scale is, yay, you're happy about that, your heart's not happy. Your liver is not happy. Your kidneys are like upset with you after putting yourself through this. That's
interesting, because the first thing I think of when I think of a diet that has all those fats that you mentioned is my poor heart.
Yeah.
Which, I over the years, I lost a lot of uncles to heart attacks. They would die in their 50s, they would die in their 60s, and their heart would give out. So I think we become very heart conscious throughout the 70s and the 80s. And a lot of that had to do with taking out some of the things that are sitting in this diet.
Yeah.
So I worry about my heart. And there's cardiologists who stood up and said, yeah, this isn't the best idea in the world.
Oh, for sure. Any wellness professional, any doctor, including the Surgeon General, will stand up and say, we need to decrease the amount of fat from animal sources altogether. If you get it out totally, awesome, but we all need to focus on decreasing that, increasing it. So you have a diet that comes along and says, yeah, this is bacon, go ahead, eat it breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's not sustainable. You will be alive and your heart will be alive for the next 3 weeks while you're on it, but this isn't something that's going to get you to 80 years old. This is not a diet that's going to have you see your grandchildren at some point. You have to get off of it, and your doctor, you'll go in for your annual checkup and they'll say, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, what happens if you take some blood? I mean, what's that result going to look like?
Oi. I'd say oi. That's not going to be pleasant. So, and that kind of goes into the third thing that I have. It's the cost of it. You think that it's not costing a lot of money. You know, I went into it and it said I had to consume 75% of all of my calories from fat during the day, only 5% from carbs, and 20% from protein. So my issue with that is all the calories from an apple, a spinach, any vegetable or fruit that you have actually is carbohydrate based. So not only is it asking you to really increase unhealthy fats and unhealthy proteins, it's asking you to decrease vegetables and fruit. You know, we all know intrinsically an apple's a good thing. Spinach is a good thing. Celery, you know, onions, garlic, this is a good thing. Now you're asking me to limit that as well. So we have little red flags that are going off. But in this diet, when it comes to cost, you know, I work really hard, and I was talking yesterday with, I have our VIPs in this that I work with every single month. We have this private Facebook group. And I was telling them, they were talking about how much they spend on groceries every single month. And I say, for my family of 4, you know, a lot of people think they can't be healthy because it costs $1 gazillion. Eating organic costs $1 gazillion. And I, as a food scientist, track every single penny that we spend on groceries. So our goal is to keep it to about $650 every single month, $700. And everyone else was like, oh my gosh, I spend way over $1,000 for my family of 4. How do you keep it that low? And the thing is, on the keto diet, I was going through and planning my week as if I was on this keto diet. I'm like, how many avocados am I buying? This is costing me just alone well over $100, maybe $150 a week on food for myself. And I'm like, I would never do it because I'm not going to spend that much money on groceries for a week.
I saw that. There was a TV show, and I just don't remember the show because actually the show made me irritated enough to have this podcast with you, because I was like, what is this? What are they doing? All the food that they were cooking and talking about this lifestyle, it was incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
And I was looking going, what, like, who can afford that?
Yeah.
And not only that, like, I'm in a northern climate. We have none of that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was weird and odd. Now, you work with clients. You've got a VIP crew. And for anybody who's listening to this right now, check her out. It's the detoxyogi.com. Go to the website and you can work with Marla on eating better, detoxing better. You don't actually do full detoxes. You just teach people how to eat properly.
Yeah. Well, we do. So next month, February, I know people can listen to this whenever. We will do the February group, we will do a deep dive, a full on detox. And that's kind of like my big things is the healing that can happen during those detoxes for 7 days at the beginning of February. But then the rest of it is, let's incorporate some of the lessons we've learned into the rest of your day. So yeah, every Thursday morning, that was yesterday, I get into my kitchen and we have a live chat. We sit down. Yesterday was like 40 minutes long of, okay, gluten. Gluten was the big thing yesterday that they wanted me to tackle. The week before, they wanted me to make healthy ground beef. And it's all about taking your life where you are now and making tweaks and seeing results every single week, but making it sustainable. You know, I don't want these people to lose 20 pounds in 1 month, and that's the goal. The goal is I want them to hold their grandchildren. I want them to be dancing at their 100th birthday. I'm investing just as much time into that scale as I am into their heart, into their kidneys, into their mind, what's going on. A lot of the time we think, oh, I need to lose weight. I gained 30 pounds. And I'm like, we need to sit down and talk about that, because when did that happen? It happened after my divorce 8 years ago. Okay, we need to talk about that, because it's not weight. It's something that happened in our mind, and we need to just talk about it. And so often with my clients, we start, I can't tell you how many times I've sat down with people and at the end of it, we're crying about something that happened 20 years ago. We need to get that out before we can actually physically change. It's like these badges of honor. Something happened to you. Something happened. It could have been a divorce. It could have been, my dad has never approved of my career choice. Something. We all have this baggage and we wear this and we think, oh, it's just weight. Oh, it's an extra 10 pounds. No, it's never an extra 10 pounds. It's, you know what? My boyfriend in high school dumped me over a text message. You know, there's something there. Let's just deal with that. And until we deal with that, that weight's never really coming off. We have bandages that we'll put, the keto diet will see. So we spend a lot, as a food scientist, you think I'd be talking about food all the time. No, we talk about what's happening between your ears, because that's the most important place. And we're not losing weight, we're losing baggage when we're taking this off. Yeah,
very true about that mind-body connection. It's our mind that really drives us to eat what we eat. Yeah. And I've become very frustrated in the last couple of weeks because, and I know you haven't had a chance to listen to last week's episode that I had with Jessica Scott Reed, and she is vegan, and we talked about ethics and the ethics of eating. A lot of the foods that she eats are beans. Mm-hmm. You also cook with a lot of beans. Yeah. And so I'm paying attention to both of you. And then I look at the keto diet and it says, no rice and no beans. And I'm like, what the hell? Why does the keto diet not have any beans in it? What's the thinking on that?
Well, so there's a couple different things with the keto diet and beans, and that some people can have reactions to it. And I see this a lot with especially my kapha clients. So aside from being a food scientist, I spent a lot of time studying yoga. I'm a yoga teacher and Ayurveda. But so we break it up into, there's 3 body types and 3 mind types. And that's another thing with when I deal with patients, it's how can we make sure that what they're eating is okay with them? So sometimes with our kapha patients, which basically mean things go through them slowly. So you're a kapha if you don't poop every single day. It might be, I have, one lovely client who her husband is like poops once a week. Things go through them so slowly. They're like these beautiful, solid structures. Nothing's going to move them. But so you have to really focus on getting them through them. So for that body type, definitely beans are something that can slow them down. For the other 2, the vadas, where things move through them really, really fast. They're the people that might go poop, might go to the washroom 3-4 times a day, and that's their normal. It doesn't impact them whatsoever. And as well, the same thing with pittas. So I think they just have a blanket statement of no beans, no lentils, and then it covers, because who are those kaphas? The kaphas are the individuals who tend to sign up for the keto diet. They're the ones who really need to or want to lose 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds. Vadas are not the ones that are interested in these keto diets because they don't have a pound that they're the ones that if their life depended on it, they could not gain 5 pounds. They have to actively work just to keep their weight at it. I know my husband, one summer, he got a really bad cold flu and he ended up losing 5 pounds, and he's definitely a Vata body type. It took him a full year just to get those 5 pounds, where I'm like, I'm a Pitta body type. I'm like, I could have gained that back in my sleep. Are you kidding me? It's driving me crazy that he couldn't gain the weight back so as quick as like I could just think about it and gain that weight back. And our wonderful Pittas, like you and me, we are, we just have this engine of a stomach. That's where our power is. That's where our fire is. And we can process anything. So beans don't tend to bother us.
And by the way, when you talk about pooping, I feel like I should have a symphony playing the way you talk about it.
I love it. People now come up to me in the grocery store and they're like, can I tell you about what happened this morning? And I know that the conversation's going to go to like the bathroom. Funniest thing, I had one of my like VIP clients and she called me and she was like, I have to talk to you about something. And I'm like, where is she? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're in a stall. And I love to talk about it because it tells you so much about where your health is, not just your body, but your mind as well. And we don't pay attention. We go to the washroom, we quickly flush, we get out of there as quick as possible. We don't pay any attention to our poop, where it's so important. And my one motto in life is a healthy colon is a healthy you. And I could talk about pooping all day long. It's amazing.
How do we minimize bloating, and whether or not is that really part of the keto diet? Because it seems to be that would remedy some bloating in a temporary fashion at the expense of your blood. But I think a lot of people look at their weight and say, okay, look at the weight I lost. And everybody looks at the midsection.
Yeah.
We don't look at the scale. In fact, some people don't even own a scale. They're just looking at their midsection and saying, okay, I'm overweight or I'm not overweight. Right. So why do we focus on this area? And what can we do really to let it go? And you did talk about this in your recent newsletter.
Yeah.
A lot of it also came down to gluten.
Gluten is interesting. So it is a protein that is found in some grains, half of the grains out there. But even though it's half of the grains, it's the majority of the grains that are used. It's the grains that are used in beers. It's the ingredient, it's what's in all of our breads, all of our pastas for the most part. And these two proteins, they mess with us. They mess with our head, which is very interesting. Your brain and your mental functions do not like dealing with these two proteins. And they've even done some wonderful studies. So for the gluten work I did last week or this past week, we looked at what really doesn't like these two proteins. And they're the two proteins. There's gliadin, which is wonderful. It's what makes bread rise and so puffy. So think about this wonderful croissant. You're on the streets of Paris and you're eating these.
That was my Christmas, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I can do Christmas without a butter croissant.
Well, that's entirely fine, but it's at Christmas, right?
Yeah.
It's not every time we go to the grocery store. What happens at Christmas is what's happening at Christmas. It's totally fine. Let's talk about you the rest of the year. And the second thing is this gluten, and that is what has this elasticity. So picture a bread maker kneading that dough and the elasticity. So those are the two things. Your brain does not like it. So they've done studies where they've just removed gluten from people's diets, and mental clarity goes up. It even impacts things like Alzheimer's and depression and anxiety. So your brain does not like to deal with these two proteins. If it is in your system, there is some fog. There is something that's happening that you can get rid of. Your insides, your belly also doesn't like it. So what I said is, in this past week in the newsletter that I just sent out is let's talk about all the great grains out there that have absolutely none of this protein in it, no gluten in it. And I came up with the acronym because being a scientist, we always like to come up with acronyms because we deal with all these complex processes and there's no way any human being can remember these. So my acronym was more QCABs, and that sounds silly, and all the best acronyms are silly. So more stands for MOR. It's millet, oats, rice. And those are three that are great. Oats tend to be, you have to watch because oats tend to be processed in facilities right next to wheat. So it just has to say on the oats that it's gluten-free. Oats are naturally gluten-free, but if it's on the conveyor belt right next to flour, you have to watch. And then Q is quinoa, comes in all these wonderful different shapes and sizes and colors nowadays. So it's really versatile. And then CABS, it's CABS. C stands for corn, A is amaranth, B is buckwheat, and S is sorghum. So corn, I know if you think about it, now I know not a lot of people pay attention to their poop, but just don't think about your poop for a second. Think about summertime. You just got fresh corn. You're having corn off the cob and a wonderful barbecue. What happens the next day to your poop? What do you see?
It's a rather distinctive visual of what you had the night before.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So the outside of kernels do not actually process well in our system. Do we personally eat whole corn kernels in our house? Yeah, we came here from San Diego. We eat Mexican all the time, but we limit it. It's not something that's day in and day out. So it tends to be better from a corn perspective is either corn flour or corn meal, which is maize. You'll often hear called, and that's entirely fine. It tends to be a sweeter flour or sweeter wheat, but you can definitely eat it. It's entirely gluten-free. A is amaranth. A little difficult to find the actual grain, but I was at the bulk food store the other day, and they make tons of pasta, even organic pasta, using it, and it's fantastic. The kids have no clue that they're not eating a wheat-based pasta. And then buckwheat. Buckwheat's a hard one. It gets a poor bad name because it says wheat right in the title.
Also tastes bad.
Well, it depends upon how you have to find the right recipe.
When my mother's serving buckwheat pancakes, I was very disappointed.
Yeah. You know you're eating something healthy.
Yeah, I just was like, Mom, can I have the buttermilk?
Yeah. So you have to find the right recipe if you want to go that route. Remember, we've got 8 to pick from here. You don't have to. I say I spend the majority of what we consume is the MOR, the millet, oats, and rice. My husband's way into making sushi. We're making sushi tonight, some vegetarian sushi because the kids love it. And I'm really into jasmine rice because we really do a lot of both Thai and Indian food at home as well. And millet also we have because it's super easy. You can make it into porridge. And also of the 8, those 3 tend to be the cheapest if you shop in bulk. You can get some really good deals. Like last night, I made something with rice. Well, 1 cup of jasmine rice is costing me 25 cents. And not only is it feeding our entire family of 4, that ends up being enough rice for all of us, but it's enough for our leftovers for lunch today. So 25 cents, I can do that.
Am I seeing things? I think corn was on the no-go list for keto. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so why the disparity? See, this is the thing that really irks someone like me who just wants to eat right. There's people having success with keto who say no corn, and now you're saying corn.
Yeah. So sometimes they put blanket things on lentils, on corn, on wheat, because there is an underlying issue there. And instead of just looking at the one issue, they just say no to the whole category. So what happens with corn? What is corn? Corn is a really great food for livestock. And anytime something is really good for livestock, what does it mean? It means the food industry has got involved and they have genetically modified the crap out of those seeds, out of that grain. And as soon as we have taken it and gone genetically modified route, it means our body can no longer, and they call it frankenfood often. Yeah, and I have these lovely molecules at home to show you what it looks like. Here's the original structure of what a corn molecule should look like, of what it's been for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years. And as soon as you start modifying it in any way, shape, or form, it changes and your body no longer understands what food it is. So when we buy corn, we have to ensure that it is not genetically modified. And as long as you have, you're awesome. But it's so funny just to see how the chemical structure is so different from one to another.
So Al Roker, he is a rather large guy, but he's on the keto diet and he swears by it. Jillian Michaels, also fitness instructor and speaker, and she is totally against it. The two of them got into a Twitter war about the whole thing. Yeah. And I thought it was rather fascinating. And, Al Roker at the end is just like, listen, my body type, this works. Yeah. Now, he's very kapha.
Yes,
and you've talked about these body types. Yeah. Is it possible that the keto diet works better for one body type over another?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is designed for much more of a kapha body type. And the thing is, they will see results, not long term. He can't be on this forever. It's not sustainable. But he is going to, at the end of a month, if Al Roker is 25 pounds less and everything is feeling better and everything is fitting better, is it adding a single day to his life? No, it's taking it off. But he is seeing those results. You can't argue with that. You look in the mirror, you step on the scale, all of your clothes fit. How much better do each and every one of us feel when we're at that point?
Feel amazing.
Yeah, you feel amazing. But it's sometimes the way that we get to the solution is worse for us than the actual solution. So you have to understand, these people just want to change. They've been there for a long time, and you see wonderful Al Roker. He's just this big teddy bear you want to hug. And he wants change. He wants something and he wants someone to tell him bacon's good. You know, we've looked at the food industry, and every time you hear something, it's like, that's bad for me. This is bad for me. How many times have you heard that to the point that you're like, I'm bad for me?
Well, that's what happened to me. And that's why we're having this conversation, because I got into it in the first year. It was going to be, okay, I'm going to eat right. And then all of a sudden, all the things that I know to eat right are on the banned list with this keto diet. And at which point I just became confused. And actually, I stopped eating. For a day. I just said, you know what? I'm not eating today.
And that's actually a trick of the food industry, of the nutraceutical industry. And it makes me bonkers. Every single week, something comes out of, this is bad for you. This is bad for you. No, apples are bad for you. No, apples are never going to be bad for you. Someone says spinach. Oh, you can't eat spinach. Spinach is bad for you. And so what it tricks you into thinking, all of us as consumers, is we need these experts, because every single week, the playing field changes and we need them to tell us what's good this week. You don't need them to tell you what's good for you. You know an apple is good for you.
The Canada Food Guide just came out, and I look back over the history of the Canada Food Guide, and I'm like, I'm not so sure that's a good track record. Some of the things that they've recommended in the past that we eat, which, you know, for years was loaded with dairy, but they suggested processed cheese at one point.
Yeah.
Really? Was that sponsored by Kraft? How does that work?
Well, that is so funny that you bring it up. And I think we must have chatted about this before at some point. But when I was in university many, many moons ago, we had this great professor who I loved and adored, and a new food guide had come out in Canada. And he said to us, okay, guys, I want you to tell me, why did we increase it to 3 to 4 servings of dairy every single day? Tell me why. You have the weekend, come back on Monday. So all of us keeners, all these scientists come back, and we were quoting all these studies, and we're like, this is amazing. I've got it. I know exact. I'm going to ace this. And he listened calmly to all of our explanations, and he said, great research. You are all entirely wrong. Take your Canada Food Guide, flip it over, and look what it says at the bottom. And it said, funded by the Dairy Council of Canada. And he held it up in front of us and said, this is nothing but a political agenda. If you take these to your clients, we will strip your degree away from you, or we should. You don't pay attention to this. We need to pay attention to the science. And so now the Canada Food Guide is coming out, and there's this turf war because the food industry, the agriculture industry wants in. They want to give input. Well, what does that mean? They want sales. That's what they want. They want to make money. It's not about your health and your wellness. It's about, can they sell what they're putting on the shelves?
And actually, the dairy and the meat have been relegated now to a smaller section. But yeah, it's very difficult to pay attention to the Canada Food Guide when it appears to be bought and paid for.
And I think that they are making really, really good inroads. I don't know if you read, there was a great article that came out last week of how Health Canada is really fighting and pushing back. And of course, it's just the preliminary, the results that have come out. So it's not the final. Certain input will go in there. But they're really pushing back, saying the agriculture industry, the food industry has no business helping us form this guide. This needs to be science and science alone. And so they might take the step, just like the Surgeon General said. And he's like, you want to know what? We don't need meat in our diet anymore. If you want to eat it, that's fine. But understand it has nothing to do with your health and wellness. Think of it more like you think of ketchup as opposed to something that needs to be there.
I like ketchup.
Yeah, and people like bacon.
Full of sugar.
Yeah.
But I like ketchup.
Yeah.
But it's full of sugar.
Yeah. So it's in the miscellaneous category. And that was actually funny when I was in university as well. One of the big things was bacon was moved from the meat section into the fats and others. So it was no longer even healthy enough to be considered a meat that year. And I was like, what? That's crazy. But it was like, yeah, it didn't qualify.
Let's go back to your list of the 5 things we need to know about the keto diet. We're at number 3. What's number 3?
Number 3 is the keto diet paints all carbs as bad, all grains as bad. And even though the majority, if you walked into any grocery store, the things on the shelf, the cereals, the processed grains, yep, they are not good for you. It's basically telling you rice is bad for you. Oats are bad for you. Are you kidding me? But it just paints this blanket image that all grains are bad. And this kind of comes back to what I was talking about from your brain. Now, a lot of your muscles, your tissues, your bones, they will get energy from either fat, or protein, or carbs. Your brain is specialized in that the only thing it wants to use as an energy source is carbohydrates. That's what it wants. And so I want my brain to be happy. I need it 24/7. So I want to supply the energy that it needs. And that's complex carbohydrates. That's the rice. That's the oatmeal we had for breakfast this morning. If you force it to get its carbohydrates from another source, from either fat or protein, your liver, your kidneys are working overtime, not exactly what we want it to do. And it is being forced to consume an energy source it does not want to. So do you want to do that to your brain? You're driving down the road, you got to work, you got to farm a strategy for your business, you got to deal with your family. I am treating my brain like it is a Ferrari, like it is a Cadillac, like it is a Lamborghini. I am giving it the best source of fuel, which tends to be either fruits, vegetables, legumes, or healthy, gluten-free grains every single day, because I'm a Ferrari. Are you a Ferrari?
I like to think of myself as that, or a Lamborghini.
Yes, you're definitely a Ferrari. So let's treat it like that. So that's number 3. Number 4, it's all about weight loss. It's what's on the scale. You look at any single email from them, you look at any single website, you will lose this much weight in this much time. It is about your weight loss. It is only skin deep. It doesn't talk about, hey, we're going to get your heart healthy. Hey, we're going to get your liver healthy. Hey, anything else. It's kind of like that person you dated in university and you know they were dating you. It was only about your looks. This is only about this, only skin deep. They are not going any further, and they are not concerned about your health and well-being. They're not concerned about getting you on this planet 50 years more, 60 years more. They're not concerned about having you dance at your 100th year birthday. They just want you to lose weight and lose weight now. It's an instant fix, and they're not in it for the long run. The last thing is, and we kind of touched on this a handful of times, this is not something that is ever going to work long term. You get on it and you have to get off it, which kind of goes into what you are asking me of, okay, what's next? I'm on the keto diet right this second. What's going to happen the day I'm off, on day 22, on month 2? What is our next steps?
So what are the next steps to get off the keto diet?
So we need to take what you got that was great during the keto diet. It probably made you go into your kitchen and clean out everything that was processed foods. You probably don't have chips in there anymore. You probably don't have anything else that's in there. But we need to now start introducing healthy foods. Now that we've made your scale happy, let's start making your liver healthy, your kidneys healthy, your heart healthy, your head healthy. So we need to start looking at something that's going to contain you and keep you on this planet and happy and healthy for as long as we can. So it tends to be a more plant-based diet.
I think the first takeaway from this diet are the whole foods.
Yeah.
And I think it's good training for, where you need to go with a plant-based diet. Yeah. So talk very simply about a plant-based diet, because we touched on it with Jessica last week about going vegan, but that, doing it for ethical reasons. Yeah. But now let's do it for health reasons. So what can you offer with that?
And I would say that I actually don't, even though for the predominant part, I am vegan, and it just happens to be from science. It wasn't necessarily, well, I guess it was ethically based. I started becoming vegetarian when I was probably 8, 9, 10 years old. And I realized my dad had hunted for the venison that was on our plates, and I had no clue. We just ate the food that our parents made. And I just was like, oh my God, Dad killed Bambi. And from that day on, so I kind of started for the ethical reasons. But when I got into the science of it, I saw so many of the people I loved in my life pass away when I was 12, 13, 14, that I was like, I don't want to live till I'm 50. I want to be happy and healthy and live way longer. So then it's when I brought the science part of it into it and got my degree and worked in medicine and did a whole bunch of things there. So that's how I came to it. But looking at it being more plant-based, more whole-based, it's what our system has always wanted. So I took kind of a 10-year sabbatical from my wellness career, and I worked with, it sounds odd, with wild animals. First I did a lot of work with elephants, then it went to gorillas and cheetahs and tigers. And you think, well, that's kind of a departure, and it really was. But it was amazing that I got to spend a decade of my life studying how are animals eating? What are they eating? What can we learn from them? And how does that apply to our human diet? So one of the things that we always looked at when we were dealing with a new species and determining what it ate or what it should eat is we always looked at its teeth. And our teeth tell us so much about what we've consumed for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, as well as what we should eat. So I encourage you to smile. Give me a big smile. Show me those canines. Well, we don't have canines. We were never intended to break through the flesh of large animals. It never has been. You look at our structure, you look at fossils from 1 million years ago. We just haven't done that. We were meant to, looking at our dental structure, it's similar to a chimpanzees, the greater apes. We were meant to consume basically 95% of vegetables, fruit, and grains or tubers in their case. So that's what we are supposed to. That's what our body, our entire digestive system is set up for. It's so funny. We debate in the last 20 years, what should we eat? Well, you look at your structure 100,000 years ago, 1 million years ago, it's telling us left, right, and center. And we were always plant-based. Was there a tiny sliver that ate protein? And yes, absolutely there was. But it was ants and termites and things that do not require canine teeth to bite or tear into. And similar as to what we see currently with chimpanzees as well as gorillas.
Tell everybody how we can connect with you and what are we going to get when we work with you.
Yeah, so I have a wonderful program that I've been doing these detoxes, these cleanses, and getting you back to a more healthy place for about 15 years ago. And I have worked to perfect it to a point where people kept asking me, what are you doing? And I just did it with myself and friends, and slowly I've opened it up. And now I have people all over the North America that are doing this with me every single month. And it does tend to be very plant-based. So every month I sign people up and they join, and we're in a wonderful community. We do a deep dive, a detox for a full week of it. We're doing one in February, and it's very plant-based, and we focus on removing dairy from our diet. Is that something that actually humans haven't consumed? We didn't talk at all about dairy.
Well, we don't need it. And you and I have spoken about it before, but we agree that dairy is not something that is necessary.
It's not supposed to be there. We've only started consuming dairy a handful of thousands of years ago. Our bodies were never meant to process it past lactation. So we actually lose the proteins, the enzymes to break down any type of dairy, human dairy, any type of dairy, past the time that our mother breastfed us. So that's something we lose. We're fighting against what our body wants the entire time, if we are. So we take out dairy. We look at how we can really look at plants and look at our digestive. So we eat a lot of digestively friendly meals during this time. A lot of people don't know that 70% of all of the energy that we consume, all the vitamins, nutrients, calories, must go right back to our digestive system to digest the next meal. And there's only 30% that actually goes to walking you to your car, to getting you to the gym, to doing anything else you need. So we flip that and make sure that we're doing everything we can to decrease the load on our digestive system and increase it so we can heal from that little scratch we have, really mend that lower back pain. And what we do is I teach people how to enter their own healing state within their mind, within their body during this week. So this is not just about what's on the scale, and people they lose weight during it, obviously, but it's about how can we get you to a healing state where you're healing from the tip of your toes to the top of your head and back again. And then after that, we spend the rest of the month really saying, how can we get this into our community? How can we make this as what we're consuming all month long and really bringing it into your norm? So then the meal becomes a lot more, how can we incorporate this into pizza night, into sushi night, into a barbecue? Let's make that work. So every Thursday we jump in, we have a live kitchen talk. I have a private Facebook group for them. And I'm in the kitchen and we're drinking coffee and we're talking about all the health issues that they've had from the past week. And I really meet people where they are. If everyone is talking to me this week about irritable bowel syndrome, we're getting them through that. If everyone is talking about, hey, we're leading up to Valentine's Day, what chocolate are you eating? Because I'm eating chocolate. It's Valentine's Day. I'm having wine. Okay, so what is that? How can we bring this into our everyday life? And it's this beautiful community. We all know each other and cheer each other on, and we are there to support each other every step of the way. And there's people that are 70 years old in it and people that are 17 years old in it, and every walk of life and every place in their wellness journey. And we meet them where they are and we hold their hand and we take the next step with them.
Thank you, by the way, for making it to the end of the podcast. If you have made it, go to Your Wellness Journey, which is your podcast, Marla. We have you on the Hot Air podcast every once in a while to talk about our bodies because it's confusing. And I'm confused all the time. When I get confused, that's what this podcast is for, is to ask the pros the question, and you're the pro.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here. Anytime you have questions, I'm happy to come back.
The Hot Air Podcast. For more, including show notes and links, go to hotairpodcast.com and wherever great social media is found. A production of the Sound Off Media Company.